Hi guys. Today I want to discuss an architectural marvel and engineering enigma, the megalithic monument of Osireion in Abydos, Egypt. This subterranean structure is known for its huge stone blocks and unique water features. The granite pillars of Osireion average around 50 tons each. Some suggest the largest blocks could weigh 100 tons or more. The 2-meter wide water channel of Osireion appears shallow, but is actually 15 meters or 49 feet deep, which means the stone-lined channel extends underground to 5 stories. What's more baffling is that there is no bedrock underneath. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic scans from deep wells built in the area did not reveal any rock formations around the Osireion. So, this megalithic subterranean structure containing so much water is built on sand. James Westerman and his team tried to pump the water out of the site to study the submerged parts. Pumping at 500 gallons of water per minute, however, could not dewater the Osireion. It's evident that this structure connects to aquifers and water gushes out from underneath. Please note this phenomenon is not due to the water table rise during modern times, because the ancient Greek scholar Strabo documented from 2,000 years ago that the Osireion was already filled with water. Strabo visited the site and described it as a royal building, a remarkable structure built of solid stone, also a fountain which lies at a great depth, so that one descends to it down vaulted galleries made of monoliths of surprising size and workmanship. Unfortunately, the roof of the vaulted galleries made of monoliths are long gone, likely taken by ancient stone robbers. Right by the Osireion is the Temple of Seti from the 13th century BC. Current mainstream belief is that the Osireion dates to the same period, which many disagree, including myself, who think it's much older. Swiss archaeologist Edward Novell was one of the first modern excavators who worked on the Osireion. In his 1914 report, he pointed out that the Osireion has old characteristics of a very old construction, one of the finest specimens of the gigantic architecture of the first dynasties, and bears a much close resemblance to the Valley Temple of Khafre on the Giza Plateau. He stated that these two structures have the same style of architecture and masonry, and the same absence of ornament of any kind, though the Osireion proportions are larger than those of the Valley Temple. Judging from that, the Osireion was likely built by the same mysterious culture which erected the Great Pyramids and the Giza temples, and therefore is much older in age. What was the Osireion's function? Why was it built with most of the structure submerged in water? Where did the water come from? In this video, I'll present my findings. Let's start with the source of the water. Over the past few decades, multiple teams collected and analyzed the water samples from the Osireion and other nearby water sources. These published results collectively indicate that the water within the Osireion has unique qualities. Neither the geographically closest wells nor any other tested water sources are the same with the Osireion water. Researchers concluded that the Osireion contains water from a mixed source, not typical of other waters included in the present Abydos dataset. A 2022 paper found that the Osireion water is a mixture of 3 different types of water: Old Nile water before the construction of the Aswan High Dam in 1970, recent Nile water after the construction of the High Dam, and paleo water from deeper aquifers. The results also revealed a prospective paleo channel in the direction of the northeast and its location. It's interesting to see that the Osireion contains deep paleo water, which potentially means that this 15-meter deep water channel might have been constructed to reach to the deeper aquifer. Paleo water, also known as fossil water, refers to groundwater that recharged aquifers long ago, before the Holocene epoch. Roughly speaking, actively circulating groundwater is likely to be less than 10,000 years old. Paleo water typically ranges from tens to hundreds of thousands of years old, and it can even be millions of years old. This water is considered non-renewable because the geological conditions that allowed it to recharge are no longer present. That raises a question. If the Osireion connects to a paleo-water aquifer, which is over tens of thousands of years old, then was the Osireion built during that time, a time that predates the Holocene? Or was the connection to paleo-water just an accident or a design oversight? Look at the striking and majestic Osireion. The masonry work is undoubtedly highly sophisticated. 3 different kinds of stones are used here: granite, sandstone, and limestone. The incredible thing is, Osireion exhibits almost all the perplexing particularities of ancient megalithic sites around the world. The mega-scale stone blocks, the high-precision joints, the knobs, the inverted knobs, the polygonal blocks, the bent corners, you name it. Numerous polygonal blocks fit tightly like what we observe at the Valley Temple of Khafre. Most blocks have slight bulging looks, and the undamaged conjoining seams between blocks are extremely precise and paper-thin. There are also L-shaped corner blocks as if they were bent by the builders. Another feature shared with the Valley Temple and some sites in Peru. A detail which is unique to Osireion is that there is a long, angled, drilled hole on the wall of the middle pool in a central island. What's the point of this deliberately drilled hole? As mentioned earlier, the original roof is missing, probably taken by stone robbers. Since the building is underground, the stone roof is the most easily reachable and presumably the first to be butchered and stolen. Stone robbers left lines of wedge marks on many remaining stone blocks. Osireion's massive pillars, made of Aswan rose granite, measure approximately 2.4 meters square by over 3.5 meters high, or 8 feet square by 11 feet high. A curious feature is that these immense granite pillars are tied together through mortise and tenon joints with the upper stone beams. If we examine the site carefully, we can find similar mortise and tenon joints on quite a few megaliths, from the giant pillars to the top of the entrance traverse hall to the outer stone walls on the east side. Such joints can provide a secure and robust connection, vital for stone structures that need to withstand weight and environmental forces. It's possible that most bigger blocks here are interlocked and integrated using such structural joints. By the way, I suspect that this intriguing element is also a connection joint, as it's located in the center and adjacent to the upper block where a joint is expected to be. Connecting gigantic stone blocks with such joints is very tricky. They are frequently used in woodwork, but rarely in masonry construction, primarily because stone's intrinsic attributes making it difficult and laborious for this jointing technique. Stone typically exhibits much higher compressive strength than tensile strength. The low tensile strength makes stone brittle and prone to fracture. Even hard rock granite can easily chip on right-angled edges and corners. If stone blocks are not handled with great care, they can readily break during transportation and maneuvering. Mortise and tenon joints require precise cutting and fitting, which can be truly challenging with the hardness and rigid feature of stone. The right-angled corners and square sharp edges are the most fragile parts as they chip easily. A slight bump during positioning the block can result in broken corners and edges, which would negatively impact the jointing strength. Since antiquity, stone construction often relies on simpler connections like dovetails, metal clamps, or the use of mortars and other binding agents. But the massive Osireion pillars and blocks present the mortise and tenon type of joints. Imagine lifting and moving the super heavy granite beams, positioning them accurately so the rectangular mortise holes and the tenon protrusions can fit exactly and locked in together. This will be really difficult. That seems beyond the grasp of ancient Egyptians, who with bronze tools would not be able to even cut these mammoth granite blocks into crisp 90-degree edges. Fitting 2 huge granite blocks through a mortise tenon joint would not be easy even with today's equipment. Then how and why did the Osireion builders do that? They were clearly very proficient with masonry construction, which means they should have been familiar with the simpler metal clamp technique or mortars. So why didn't they use the easier methods instead? Hold that thought, and I'll come back to it later. In the central hall, We see multiple large floor blocks in various shapes, with many cutting surfaces. Why would the ancient stoneworkers make their tasks much more difficult and chose to produce so many irregular, non-uniformed blocks? What's more, the Osireion has different types of knobs. Some are leveled with flat bottoms, which look like lifting bosses, and some are shallow and random, resembling the knobs seen at the Menkaure Pyramid and Sacsayhuaman. Close-up shots show that they look like leftover material after unhardened concrete getting smoothed or scraped. What if these stone blocks were not carved, but cast? Here are some undeniable clues. Take a look at this Osireion wall. The upper portion is flat and straight, while the bottom blocks are slightly puffy and bulging. The areas of the finished, flattened stone blocks with tight adjoining seams are just like that of the Valley Temple. In between the two finishes, there are obvious scraping marks. It appears that the stone blocks were soft and malleable at the time of construction, which then was flattened and smoothed out to achieve the desired finishing look. Scraping is a procedure used in modern concrete projects to redistribute, compress, and remove any excess pliable material like concrete, and it makes the surface flat, smooth, and leveled. The marks here show that the screeding started from the top and somehow stopped in the middle of the screeding process, resulting in flattened upper blocks, though the lower ones remain in their original cast forms. On the other side of Osireion, certain niche walls were screeded and flattened, while one wall has been almost entirely flattened, except for the bottom, which left screeding marks. We have seen this strange scenery at the Menkaure Pyramid granite casings. Certain blocks are flat on one side and bulging on the other, permanently frozen in the work-in-progress mode. These scraping marks are the best evidence showcasing that these stones are very likely not natural rock, but concrete-like materials. Casting can effortlessly explain many puzzling qualities of the site, such as the oversized blocks, the sharp 90-degree edges, the tight conjoining seams between blocks, the bulging look, the polygonal feature, the shallow knobs, the stamp and scraping marks, and how the mortise and tenon joints were efficiently and effectively created. Furthermore, the Osireion scraping marks are in sandstone and the Menkaure ones in granite. It implies that the builders of these megalithic structures knew how to cast various types of stone. All this evidence is telling us just how advanced the Osireion builders were. For a sophisticated culture, constructing this subterranean, 15-meter deep building with precise and heavy interlocking artificial stone blocks that connects to deep paleowater aquifers, which is still functioning today, sure is no accident, but was carefully planned, designed, and executed to serve some important purpose. Then what was the Osireion's function? Let's examine the building layout, which can help us eliminate some unfounded guesses. Even though it's called a cenotaph of Seti I, the Osireion's layout denies such a statement. Cenotaphs are empty tombs or memorials for people to visit and honor the deceased, which the Osireion does not fit. Why is that? If we enter the site through the entrance hallway, we would encounter the water barrier right at the gate. The wraparound, 15-meter deep, over 2-meter wide water channel isolates the central hall island, and also prevents people from entering any niches or the antechamber. Currently, long wooden boards are used to bridge the water channel for tourists. Without these modern additions, people would have no access beyond the front traverse hall. It's really bizarre that there is this awfully long corridor, 123 meters or over 400 feet, leading to the structure, but when you finally arrive, you would be blocked by the water channel. The Osireion was evidently not designed for regular human usage, as it basically grants no circulation path. Thus, it could not have been a monument for memorial or worship, since people cannot even get in to pay respect. Its low elevation and constant flooding denote that it was unfit to be a tomb either. The entire structure, including the antechamber and the niches, was found empty during the initial modern excavation. The niches or cells are pretty small, with openings about 6 feet high. The spacious end hall with the gable ceiling has the same small entrance as the ones at the niches. Like the rest of the structure, this chamber gets flooded periodically. Despite that the central hall is isolated by the water channel, there are two sets of stairs in human scale going down the channel. If the only path to enter the central island is blocked by the deep water channel, then why create these stairs? How can people get to the central island? Were they supposed to carry long boards with them and go through the 100+ meter long corridor each time they visited? If the building was not built for normal human access, then what was it designed for? What was the Osireion's function? Former director of the Egyptian Geological Survey, Bahe Isavi, wrote in 2009 that the Osireion is the only gushing spring in the whole western side of the Nile Valley. Quote, "Nowhere in this long stretch, approximately 1,000 kilometers, is the topography lower than the aquifer except in the Osireion." End quote. This means the location of the Osireion was special and its construction was a calculated strategic decision. It is where it is for a specific reason. The fact that its structure is subterranean with a 15-meter deep shaft dug into the sand connecting to a paleo water source and the old Nile water indicates that it was designed to collect water. The Osireion was a hydraulic facility that functioned as a combination of a well and a cistern or reservoir. This is not only my own judgment, but also Edward Novell's, the archaeologist who worked on site at the Osireion in the 1910s. He believed that the structure is neither a temple nor a tomb, but a reservoir, a great hydraulic work. He also stated that the ancients, quote, "must have known very well the laws of the rise and fall of the river, and also of the subterranean sheet of water, which is said to flow under the desert, as well as under the cultivated land, the so-called underground Nile, which the hydraulic engineers of the current day are studying and trying to use for the fertilization of the land." End quote. Let me remind you that he was also the one who regarded the Osireion to be one of the oldest buildings in Egypt. I found his conclusions perfectly sensible and logical. It's a pity that people ignored his expert opinions and instead claimed that the Osireion was an empty tomb of Seti I and built by that pharaoh around 13th century BC. Likely because Seti's cartouches were carved on parts of the Osireion and that the temple of Seti is very close to Osireion. Whereas they ignore the fact that the Osireion design is completely different from the temple of Seti. The temple is beautifully adorned and embellished in a classic Egyptian style. In contrast, the Osireion is austere and displays solemn simplicity. Some argue that the temple of Seti also has tall, massive columns, comparable to the Osireion pillars. So the Osireion megaliths could have been the work of the same groups of workers. Two things to be noted here. First is that the temple of Seti was built of limestone and sandstone, while the Osireion large pillars are granite, a harder rock and much more difficult to work with. During Seti's era, there were only bronze tools. Workers during this period could not have carved the jointing granite blocks with seamless high precision. Second, although the columns of the temple of Seti are approximately 7 meters tall, indeed taller than the pillars of Osireion, their heights are made by stacking multiple column drums together and not monolithic like the Osireion pillars. The Osireion pillars are not as tall, but much thicker and weigh more, around 50 tons each. The Temple of Seti is an amazingly exquisite ancient Egyptian masterpiece, but the Osireion masonry work is far more advanced, as its construction required creating a 5-story deep, subterranean building with high-quality cast stone, and maneuvering and fitting bigger and heavier stone blocks. As for finding Seti's cartouches at Osireion, that only proves that the Osireion existed during Seti's time frame. It's well known that Ramses II claimed pre-existing buildings as his own. He would prominently inscribe his cartouches and image onto monuments, including those that were not originally constructed during his reign. This was a common practice among pharaohs to legitimize their rule, associate themselves with the achievement of their predecessors, or to overshadow their predecessors. it's highly likely that Seti I followed the same adoptive tradition and added his name and hieroglyphs of his liking to the Osireion. On the other hand, the architecturally and technologically superior Osireion shares its distinct characteristics with the Giza pyramid complex, which signal that they were from the same era. Another point on the Osireion's age. If this subterranean Osireion well was created by dynastic Egyptians, then you wouldn't have to be this deep into the ground, as a shallower well could have reached groundwater aquifers sufficient to provide water. The Osireion being deep and having access to deeper paleowater aquifers signifies that it was possibly done by a different, earlier civilization. Okay, in summary, I propose the following. Evidence suggests the Osireion construction was meticulously planned as a water collecting facility, a well and cistern combination, and strategically connects to several water sources, including paleowater aquifers. Paleowater is over tens of thousands of years old. The connection to paleowater warrants the key question concerning whether the Osireion was built before Holocene, which means it's at least 12,000 years old. The uncanny construction similarities between the Osireion, Khafre's Valley Temple, and the Menkaure Pyramid imply, if not dictate, that they were built during the same period, and thereby definitely predates the Temple of Seti. The megalithic polygonal blocks with tight conjoining seams and the mortise and tenon joint are made of artificial cast stone. This well/reservoir theory can logically explain the specific location and why the structure is built deep underground and primarily submerged in water year-long. That drilled small hole might be for hydraulic purpose, like an overflow hole or piping of sorts. As a reservoir, the Osireion was not open to human access unless for maintenance purposes, which resolved the lack of a circulation path problem. It can also justify why the stone blocks are bonded through mortise and tenon joint instead of the easier metal clamps or mortars. Since metal joints would quickly rust and deteriorate in such a moist environment, and the excessive moisture, periodic flooding would weaken the mortar, make it swell and crack, reduce its strength, and impair its bonding capabilities. You may wonder, can this hypothesis explain other mysterious features of Osireion, such as the super heavy megalithic aspect and a peculiar layout? Why are Osireion's pillars much chunkier than those of the Valley Temple? What are the 16 surrounding niches meant for? And the long entrance corridor that dug into Mar rock? I plan to make another video to further discuss and explore these questions. If you have any insights, please leave me a comment. If you like my video, please subscribe to my channel and share with others. You can also support me on Patreon, which is a monthly charge, or on Buy Me a Coffee. I appreciate your support. This is Curious Being. I'm Tina. Thanks for watching and see you next time.